Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's welcome our main speaker, Scott.
My name's Scott Redman. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Scott.
Hi, everybody. I'm really sick, so if I dash out that door, unless anybody's got some extra Depends on them or something like that. I think Depends could have kept me drinking a couple of more years. I'm glad they didn't come up with that. I'd like to welcome all the new people to Alcoholics Anonymous. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'd like to welcome you to AA. I'd like to welcome you if you're a drug addict. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're a dope fiend, which is somehow worse than any of us, welcome to AA. If you're a crack monster or a dope juggernaut or the Bigfoot of dope addicts, welcome to AA. Just catch alcoholism. We'd love to give you alcoholism. I caught alcoholism at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I did not have alcoholism when I got here. I'm Jewish. Jews don't drink. Because it might dull the pain. And, you just don't want to squander any agony opportunity that presents itself. You want to be... I caught alcoholism in AA meetings. I didn't have alcoholism when I got it. I'm Jewish, number one. I got the Judaism. And I also had been in psychotherapy for 18 years by the time I got to AA. I was going to be dead, but I was going to understand it. And I am not putting therapy down in any way, shape, or form. I've used therapy many times in sobriety to great effect. I had great therapy before I came here. My colossal mistake was I was trying to treat my alcoholism with psychotherapy, which is like showing up at a gunfight with a knife and just getting a colossal ass beating. And I'll just talk about it for a minute because it was such a great thing for me. I kept reading this phrase in our book, Moral Psychology, and I didn't understand it. The idea of a lot of conventional therapy is to accept, of course, the therapy where Mary was headed, which was more of a John Lennon thing, wherever she was going there. I want to thank her for a wonderful talk and happy birthday to the birthday people. Is to uncover, discover, unravel, to free associate, to go to a therapist. Idea of kind of conventional Freudian therapy is to free associate, maybe delve into the past, and come up with a better resolution for your problems. I don't know if anybody here's ever been referred to as neurotic. A neurosis is an unsatisfying resolution for anxiety. So it means your solutions are worse than your problems. And the idea of a lot of therapy is to come up with with a comforting resolution for your problem. So I'm going to therapy, and I'm sitting down. I'm going. I feel terrible. Why? I was so drunk today. I was too drunk to walk, so I drove. I got arrested and stuff. Well, what are we going to do about that? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. What were you thinking just before you did it? Nothing. Nothing. Hi, Bob. I feel terrible. Why? Well, this afternoon I sharpened a hypodermic needle on the back of a matchbook striker and sucked some heroin up through a fluffed up cigarette filter, and I injected it. I feel terrible. Well, what are we going to do about that? Let's talk about that. Why do you think... Let's talk about that. Are we really going to talk about that? The big book says if you ask an alcoholic and they don't, eat your face or blow you away or lie, odds are they have no more idea than you. That's a fix. That's a really bad fix. So I'm going to therapy with these problems. You would need a board of therapists working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to file my shit, to catch it and file it, just to classify it. Recently, Mary was talking about newcomer plans. This guy just raised the bar. A short amount of time ago, this guy I know in the Midwest is sponsoring this guy who recently stopped doing the work, and he drank, got 3 DUIs in rapid succession, and came up with the following plan. This was his plan. He made 5 Molotov cocktails. He was going to go down to the county courthouse, put a Molotov cocktail on each corner of the courthouse, blow the courthouse up, thereby they would lose his paperwork. I don't know if anyone has paperwork anymore. Does anybody have paperwork? And I don't know I've never read the instructions on a Molotov cocktail, but I think throwing is involved at some point. He put all 4 cocktails on the corner of this building and then laid down in his car and fell asleep with the 5th one. Oh my God, my God, my God. So I didn't have alcoholism when I got here. I grew up in the Bronx in New York City. My mom's in for Thanksgiving. I feel like I've been in a psychological theme park for the last week. My family's just completely crazy. My wife never believed me about my family until she met him. And my mom threw an engagement party for us, and my Aunt Rose came and wore her wig backwards. And it had a bun on it. The bun was bouncing off her forehead all night. And I had an uncle who was one of the top 10 welterweights of the world during the 1930s. His name was Redman. He was concerned about anti-Semitism. He was fighting in Atlanta, Georgia in 1939 and had his name changed to Izzy Goldberg so that no one would know he was Jewish. He thought they'd think he was German. The Germans were pulling in a lot of fans in 39. And this is not, you don't go to the bar and brag about this. You don't go to the bar and go, I'm a moron, I'm from a long line of morons. If you stare at me, you can see my DNA unravel. I'm an idiot. And there was mental and physical abuse and chronic institutionalization and suicide attempts. I was in a really bad spot. And if you're new here, all I've got is good news for you, because my family didn't have anything to do with making me an alcoholic. And that might be very confusing to you if you're new, because a lot of bad stuff might have happened to you. And man, I am not telling you it didn't happen. A lot of bad stuff happened to me. I had to do a lot of stuff to treat that stuff. But I have a physical allergy to alcohol. I can't control, I can't stop, I can't moderate once I begin. And if you're special and a drug addict, try some controlled crack smoking. You know, just fill your mouth up with crack smoke, say I'm not in the mood, and blow it out. Or even better, get a register, say, nah, not today, and squirt it on the wall, okay? And we'll, hats will fill the air, I guarantee it. Yikes. But I have this weird physical allergy. I still have it. And I have this weird thinking that keeps talking me into having a drink I can't stop taking. It's a strange mental twist. It's referred to as alcoholic thinking. It's the source of a lot of mirth at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And you'll hear a lot about it, and it's great stuff. And I still have it. And that's why I do more in AA now than I have. The guys I hang out with do more when stuff is good. They do more when stuff is bad. They always just seem to do more. I was about 14 years sober, and I had to get this operation on my hand, and the doctor said to me, you know, Mr. Redman, you're going to need general anesthetic. And I said, oh, general anesthetic, this is great. Normal people don't get excited about general anesthetic. There's no normal person that goes, general. And I'll tell you why. You're generally anesthetized for general anesthetic. You're unconscious, and I do something because I have this weird thinking. I leave out the surgery. I just go to whoopee. I leave out like the incision, the swell. I leave that all out, you know. And I know something about general anesthetic. When they hit you with it, they say count backwards from 100, and you go 100, 99. I love 99. I love 99. And it sounds like some of you love 99 too. But I won't trade my life in for 99 anymore. I won't trade it. I won't do it. One of the most misquoted lines in the big book of AA for me has always been, I've heard people at times say, my worst day in here is better than my best day out there. No. No, I had a really good time. Let's see, an all-female jazz band and a pound of crack, or a candlelight at the wine guard. I don't know. What do I want to do? What the book says at the end of chapter 3 is I wouldn't trade my worst day in here for my best day out there, because I won't trade this way of life. I won't live like a loser. I won't settle for a nickel today when I could have a quarter tomorrow. I just won't do it anymore. I understand that, because I had a great, I'm nuts about the drinking. You know, I'm just nuts about it. About a year ago, I was told by another doctor that I needed the same operation on my other hand. And I said, I guess we'll be having a general anesthetic then. And he said, you don't need general anesthetic with this. And I immediately thought, no, I need another goddamn doctor is what I need right now. I had a miserable trip to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't want to be a drunk, so I overcame my alcohol problem with marijuana. I'd like to welcome all the potheads here tonight. And I have no idea why she's clapping, but she's... I'd like to welcome all the tweakers. Welcome, tweakers, by the way. I love you guys. If you've ever masturbated until you're dehydrated, welcome. I love you guys. If you ever licked all the features off your own face, I'm really glad you're here. But isn't that great that you identify, yeah, I'm a tweaker. Look how well arranged my wallet is. Oh, man. And overcame my marijuana problem with pills. I conquered pills with cocaine. Cocaine is an excellent drug. It's particularly good for sex if you enjoy sex from the Neolithic period. And I kicked that gall darn cocaine habit with heroin. Heroin's a very dark, complicated, artistic drug. And then you cross the line and become a vomiting pig. It's just a little hop, skip, and a jump. Just have your beret handy. And and then I drank till I wanted to be a drunk, and I was loaded on heroin the night my father died. I was 21 years old. I was a pig, an animal. I couldn't even go in and touch his cheek and give him a kiss and tell him I love him. The ice around my heart had become so thick. My father wasn't making a transition. He wasn't moving on. He was going to die and rot and go away, because that was the existential world that I lived in. I had rearranged my life to accommodate alcoholism. And I was standing in the presence, as our 4th chapter says, of all this immutable law and all of this harmony and all of this connectedness, and saying, in essence, this is a pointless cipher wandering nowhere. It's the weakest, most pathetic thinking of all. And I thought it was the real deal, you know. And I swore I would never put a needle in my arm again, because that was the problem. I had to not be the guy who was loaded the night his old man died. I couldn't be that guy. I couldn't fit the pain in my head, you know. And I didn't. I didn't put a needle in my arm for 13 years. Shortly after that, I was acting in a Broadway play, and a new usherette walked in with long brown hair. And I took one look at this woman. I had not even spoken to her or talked to her. And I went back in the dressing room of this theater, and I stood up on a chair, and I announced to the male members of this cast, I said, if anyone talks to the new usherette with long brown hair, I'll break all the bones in your hands and feet. And we celebrated 27 years of marriage last June. We're nuts over each other. After going through a lot of difficulty, we took a 8-year suicide pact and turned it into a marriage, and, you know, did a whole lot of stuff. And we never wanted to get divorced at the same time, you know, which is big. We had a great time. We were young, really young, growing up in New York and acting on Broadway, and we just had a great time. Nancy started becoming very troubled from prolonged exposure to me. After a while, she really started getting sick, and we had these 32-ounce iced tea tumblers in the house, and I came home one night and I popped a cork on a bottle of wine, and I emptied this entire bottle of wine into this tumbler, and I turn around and my wife is giving me her pre-Al-Anon rat face. This one. And I said, "What?" She said, "What are you doing?" And I looked at her and I said, "I'm having a glass of wine." Can't a man have a glass of wine in his own home? We became so sick that at one point a guy lent us his car and we sold his car. I will never forget this guy's voice on the phone as long as I live. He said, "You sold my car? I lent you." That's like house sitting for someone and they come back and you're in escrow, you know? And the alcoholic life was the only normal one. We didn't have rent money, no, really. And I looked into my wife's eyes and I said, "I am so sick of being an irresponsible punk kid. Let's do the right thing. Let's stand on our own 2 feet. Let's not borrow money. Let's sell the car." And my wife, with tears in her eyes, said, "Let's do." We had our son Micah, who was really welcomed into the world. We were surrounded by friends and tons of phone calls, lots of flowers, a lot of people at the hospital. And 2 years and 9 months later, when our son Jesse was born, there was nobody around, no phone calls, no flowers, nothing. We had become completely isolated by the disease of alcoholism in just 2 years and 9 months. And it wasn't because people didn't love us. It really hurt too much to be around us. It was too hard. We pressed ourselves on the people that loved us like a thumb upon a bruise. And again, the ice around our hearts had become so thick, we really had repelled everybody. And that night that Jesse was born, he was sick. He had a heart problem. He was in neonatal intensive care, and a doctor called me at home that night and said, "You know what, your wife's in tremendous psychological duress. The baby's hurt. Where are you? I mean, there's nobody here, you know." And I said, "I can't find anybody to watch my 2-year-old son. You know, there's really nothing I can do." And this doctor who I had never met before asked me, said, "My husband's home, and you can bring your son to my house, and my husband will take care of him." And I said no. I had no way to accept this woman's generosity. And my poor son was now locked in the house with this insane man racked with guilt. I would have done better to take him down to the waiting room at the hospital and let him color in a book, you know. When my older son Michael was about 5, we had this Christian family move in next to us, and their children used to talk about God a lot. And my son came to me, he was about 5, and he said to me, "Dad, is there anything such as God?" And I looked into the eyes of my perfect, beautiful baby boy, and I said, no, there's not. Man, in essence, I said to him, when it's dark and you're scared and you can't go to sleep, tough, because that's all there is. I don't think there's a bigger lie I could have told him. And I don't think there's anything I could have done that could have been more antithetical to what I thought I was doing, because I really thought I was giving him the straight existential party line, something every 5-year-old hungers for. So he wouldn't have to get played like a sap or a sucker. How horrible, horrible. And we went on. And then things got bad. My life just dribbled out between my fingers like a handful of water over and over again. This is where we wound up. We started out on Broadway, and this is where we wound up. This is a good morning in the Redman home. I had an accident. I went to the hospital, and my blood pressure was like 160 over 110. And the doctor said, Mr. Redman, your blood pressure is alarming. You're in very bad shape. You have to lose weight. And I said, you know what? I'd like to. But I drink alcohol and I smoke marijuana before I go to bed every night, so I'm not going to be able to. And the doctor said to me, why don't we prescribe some medication for you? And I said, what a country. And he prescribed chloral hydrate for me. Fans. It's a knockout drop. It's a Mickey. It's like getting hit on the back of the head with a sap. And I love these pills. I love these knockout drops. I'm nuts about them. So Nancy comes home. I'm eating handfuls of knockout drops and slamming my arms into the wall to keep myself awake to enjoy my knockout drop, because you don't want to waste a perfectly good knockout drop. So I'm eating handfuls of drugs, slamming body parts into the wall, and just slam dancing by myself, trying to stay cognizant to get, my money's worth. And until I seize, keel over, and then I go up to bed, and now I'm incontinent like the rest of the 33-year-old men in America, because I can't get out of bed to pee, because I got so much of these lovely pills in me. And one night I got up and wet the wall. And the next morning my wife made me a big breakfast. He wet the wall, he's headed towards the bathroom. It's progress, not perfection. We got... By the time I got to AA on April 22nd, 1985, my wife was like me, a babbling, tongue-chewing idiot. And our children were a shambles. They were a wreck. Their small motor skills were screwed up. They couldn't complete small tasks, and there was nothing organically wrong with them. They were so disrupted by being scared all the time. They were reading and writing years below their grade level. They could hardly string a sentence together. They were in horrible crisis. I had not read our literature. I had not read about the warped lives of blameless wives and children. I had not read our second and third chapters, which talk about the imprint of the alcoholic on the people that they live with. And the thinking's right. I mean, my children were locked in the same insane dance of death I've seen every alcoholic locked in. Either becoming pointlessly aggressive en route to a goal that rarely ever gets realized, or throwing the towel in and saying, what's the use anyway? I've seen it over and over again in children coming out of alcoholic homes. I don't think it's the rule, but I've seen it a lot, and it was certainly true in my home. And I think if I had really gotten it, I think if I had really appreciated the depth of the illness we had, I don't know if I could have borne it. I think I just would have looked like an outtake from Scanners. I think my brain just would have blown up, And on April 22nd, 1985, I crossed a line I swore I would never cross again. I put a needle in my arm. After 13 years. And I called my therapist in my 18th year of psychotherapy. I told him what I had done. He was my first Jungian therapist. And he said to me that morning, I didn't know it till I read our literature, but he said to me the exact same thing that Carl Jung told the man who 12-stepped him in a 12-step Bill Wilson. The exact same thing. He said, I can't help you. You can't be helped. There's nothing that can be done for you. And I said, what? He said, the only thing I can suggest is either we institutionalize you, or, and this is the thing Jung couldn't say, or you attend a meeting of Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous. And why I went to the AA meeting, I don't know. I'm a guy who gets excited about dental surgery. The nut house is fine with me. That's an uninterrupted source of narcotics for a period of time. It's a chance to be with my people, colorful and adventurous people. Why I elected to go to the AA meeting, I could not tell you. But I did. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I got my best clothes on. I got a bad check to write you. I went up to a place called Unit A next to the Tonga Hut in the deep San Fernando Valley. And I walked into this room and I looked around and I said, oh my God, how did I wind up in Alcoholics Anonymous? How lame is this? This is beyond lame. This is beyond church, beyond synagogue. This is some plateau of lameness I never even imagined was available to me. And the room looked like it was the product of 200 years of inbreeding. I mean, it was unbelievable. There were like identical twins carving their initials on each other's feet in the back of the room. At least that's what I perceived. And everything was a miracle. It's a miracle. I'm America. The coffee and furniture are miracles. And I'm waiting for the Jew hunt to start. I know that's going to start, right? Come on, Jaime, strap on these antlers. Always wanted to run a big buck Jew. It's fun. Knock his beanie off. When he goes to pick it up, we'll push him over. It'll be fun. Then the AA unsolicited information guy comes up. You know him. He's got a belt buckle large enough to serve an entire fish on. Do I want what you've got? No! No, but thanks for spitting on me, Clyde. I really appreciate it. Wait, and I'm waiting for the arts and crafts to start. We're going to hook a rug. I know we're going to hook a rug, right? I hated Alcoholics Anonymous. I hated everything about it. And like Mary said, the only reason I believe that I came back is because I was out of plans. I was. If you're new here, I pray for you that you're out of plans. If you're new here and you have a plan, it's probably a beaut. It might even be my favorite newcomer plan, the one more dope deal to set myself up financially for sobriety plan. That's going to wind up on the soft literature rack eventually, believe me. So I went back to that meeting every morning for a year because I was out of plans. And they loved me. And I still have dear, dear friends in AA who I went to that meeting with every morning. And I went, and my first commitment in AA was a guy asked me to come to central office with him once a month and watch him answer phones. And it was just the greatest thing in the whole world. I was in the control tower of sobriety. We were in such terrible condition, my family, and I just didn't know what to do. I had nothing to bring to my marriage, and we were insane. We had these insane rules. My children couldn't eat sugar, watch TV, or curse. So my wife would give them granola and put them in the car with me, Dr. Death, and say, "Hope you live," you know. But they're healthy. We were just nuts, and I had nothing to bring to my marriage. I didn't have to fight. I either screamed until she shut up or I cried until she shut up. Either one. I like the tyranny of helplessness. I always have. It's worked for me. I'm a loomer. I like to loom. I like to loom with a light behind me so I get her in a shadow. I like that. It's like total eclipse of the Jew if I really get it in right. And if I can work a scream, a cry, and a loom into one fight, that's a hat trick. It doesn't get much better than that. I'll give you the Scott Redman couples workshop right now. 10 seconds long. Here we go. You ready? Talk to her until she changes her mind. Just talk to her until her eyes roll back in her head and she keels over, and on the way down she goes, "Oh, okay." Anytime a guy I sponsor says that he's working on himself, I want to go, "Step away from yourself. Step away from yourself. Stop working on yourself." My disease reacts so poorly to a frontal assault. It just does. And you started, and once I got a sponsor at 6 months and did an inventory and read in my inventory at 9 months of sobriety, and I was on the playing field, and I consider myself to be lucky to have stayed sober for 6 months without doing an inventory. Once I got on the playing field and I started seeing that, I started understanding that I really knew my problem the first day I came to AA. I didn't know it was my problem. I hated you, I hated me, I was terrified, and I had sexual misconduct I was very ashamed of, mostly involving me. Now, I hated myself, but nothing compared to how much I hated you. I have always hated you much more than I hate. I'm not a suicide guy. I'm a homicide guy. That's just the way I've always been. I vastly prefer your death to mine. I always have. I always had this fantasy that the headline would read, "Scott Redman kills wife, kills children, and refuses to commit suicide." And I'm not knocking the suicide people. This is not an indictment of the suicide people, okay? Because I know you're out there, and I just, we're all in the same program, and I think it's kind of the flip side of the same coin in many ways. But for me, you go first. I hated myself, I hated you, I was terrified, and I had sexual misconduct. I was going to die before I had told anybody. I knew that my first day in AA. And at 9 months of sobriety, I sat down and I read the document to my sponsor, and he changed my life that day. I read, I am resentful at Nazis for slaughtering Jews during World War II. It affects my self-esteem, pocketbook, ambition, personal relations, and sex. What are the defects of character in me that if God would remove, the resentment would be gone? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. What the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about Nazis. Nothing. Okay. It says in the second chapter, paragraph of page 62, I think it's a paragraph that is the most incredible description of the uncivilized mind of the alcoholic. It says, I'll paraphrase, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our trouble. Driven. Driven is not nudged or influenced. Driven implies under the lash of, in slavery to. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows. They retaliate seemingly without provocation, but invariably, which means without variation, without any loophole, every time we find that we made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Bullshit! It's not true! What is my part? Take my part and jam it up your nose. I'm resentful at Nazis. Okay, I'm a coward. I'm too scared to kill them all. Now, my sponsor said to me in that moment, in this discussion, he changed my life, up to and including today. Hopefully for the rest of my life if I keep doing this. He said, Scott, you don't understand. They're not asking you if the event is your fault. They're asking you if the resentment is your fault. Is the event your fault? I said, no. He said, I agree. Is the resentment your fault? Every time, with no exception and no loopholes. What would a reasonable person do if they were resentful at Nazis? They wouldn't like Nazis. They would maybe work for political organizations that fought Nazism. They maybe would get involved in educating people. They would do a lot of stuff, but they wouldn't do what I did. What am I doing? I hear a German accent and I don't want to talk to the person, so I'm a racist and a hypocrite. I'm not living in today and I'm a grudge holder. I'm an opportunist and I'm filled with self-pity. I'm vengeful. And I was free. I was free to act like a guy who didn't like Nazis and would do something about it, instead of a guy who was dying from the spiritual tapeworm that was eating my brain. I was resentful at my Aunt Jean for abusing me when I was a kid. What are my defects? Nothing. It's not okay to abuse a kid. And now you could say he was a bratty kid. I don't give a crap what the kid's like. There's certain things you don't do to a 3-year-old kid, period. Was the event your fault? No, it wasn't. Is the resentment your fault? What would a reasonable person do if they had been abused by my aunt? Well, they wouldn't like my aunt. Maybe they wouldn't hang out with her. Maybe they would never allow their children to be cared for by my aunt. Maybe they would even sit down and have a discussion so that the truth got told. But they wouldn't do what I did. What I did was re-experience it, relive it. If you said you liked my aunt, I'd say, no, you don't, and this is why. I was a grudge holder. I wasn't living in today. I was a character assassin. I was a hypocrite because I abused my children. And I got set free that day, up into including today, 18 and a half years later. And if I continue to do this work, I will continue to be free. And it was a miracle. It was a miracle. I've had a lot of problems in sobriety. I've had problems at work. I've had problems, sexual problems. I've had problems in my marriage. I've had problems with my children. I know there's some people who don't have problems in sobriety, and that's fine. I have had a lot of problems in sobriety. And I hang out with people who have problems in sobriety who talk about how they're applying this spiritual solution to them. I'm famished for it. I love it. I hang out with seekers in AA. If you're new, anybody tells you that's the way AA is, man, flee. I'm just, I'm not telling you what to do, but if you read our history, and I urge you to read our history, this organization, the framers of this organization were very troubled, wacky people who did a lot of wacky shit for a long time. They ate niacin, dropped acid, were into Eastern arts. They did a lot of stuff. They were up at night playing with Ouija boards. That's what I want. I want Ouija board sobriety. I want that stuff. I want to stretch the envelope. I don't do things. I don't go have any outside help in AA. I don't do anything instead of AA. I do things because of AA. I'm in a different spiritual teachers. I've done therapy. I've done all sorts of stuff because of AA. Because I want a big, robust, sexy, fulfilling sobriety. I know the road gets narrower. I know what people are talking about that. I don't subscribe to it. The big book of AA says, join us on the broad highway. Become part of the great reality. Help us pack things into the mainstream of life. Join us on the firing line of life. It talks about life becoming more expansive, inclusive, not exclusive. That's what I want. That's what I want. When I came in, there were some old timers saying, shut up, you're a moron, sit down, you're an idiot. And I went, sounds just like home. And I know that some people, that for some people, I know it because they've told me, and I believe them, that treatment's been useful for them. It's never been useful for me. I've stayed the hell away from it for 18 and a half years. I won't truck with it. And there were some of the old timers that were doing that in my area. It took me a while to get some information in AA because this idea was that they were just wise, they knew a lot of stuff, and this came from that wiseness. And I realized afterwards, after a while, that the answer was they were mean. They were pricks. They were really mean people, although I judge no man because I'm too spiritually developed, but thank God, right? Because then I hung out and met these other old-timers who were working with new people, were doing inventory, were admitting shortcomings, were growing and putting the rubber to the road. And man, I really like that. My last sponsor, who passed away a couple of years ago, at his memorial, the newcomers he was driving around that week, were there to talk about him. All I have to do is, if I want to see him again, is just look into the eyes of a newcomer and I see him. My wife and I have been through just tremendous difficulties, and I had this really extraordinary experience in the development of my spiritual life. Some years ago, we got nailed in the Northridge earthquake. Really, really nailed. Our house got wrecked up, and I got a bad physical injury, and people were dying around us. It was really bad. And shortly after it, we were at this AA conference out of town, and this woman came up to me at the conference who was an LA expatriate. And she walked up to me and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad God got us out of LA before the quake." And I said, "Oh, so he likes you. He likes you. But we're crap, but he likes you." And she said to me, "I guess he just felt you had some lessons to learn." I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I can't live in that world. I can't possibly live in a world where I have a higher power saying, "Let's key your car today. It's boils for you, and you're due for a rash, don't you think?" I can't live in that world where I've got a God saying, "Get him, get the Redman boy, get him. No evacuation plan for you, Jew boy, get him, get him. Get him, turn his wife to salt, kill his goat, put a finger in his eye, get him. Smote his ass, smote him. Smote anyone he talks to, smote him." I'm out of here, man. I don't want to live in that world. I can't live in that world. I know that God's keeping her sober. It wouldn't keep me sober for 15 minutes. If I saw the deliberate hand of God in the suffering of people, this is not something I'd be interested in doing. One of the guys I sponsor had a little baby who was in the hospital, and a little baby next to her died, and she lived. I can't have a baby killer for a God. I can't have God saying, "I'm going to take this baby, I'm going to leave this one, figure out why. Get back to me if you figure it out." That's just me. I can't. My God expects me to do my job in AA if my kids were annihilated or not. And I know plenty of people whose children have been annihilated in AA. My God expects me to do my job in AA if my job is to show a guy how to sleep in a refrigerator box or in the house on the hill. My God's not assigning real estate. And that's just me. I had to get a God big enough so a lot of things could happen in his universe and I didn't get to drink. And I'm telling you, man, I really like living there. It gets tested, but I really like living there. As a result of the 10-step and using the 10-step for a fulcrum for change, I've reached out to other spiritual teachings. My wife and I have started to pray together, which was a huge breakthrough for me. I'll pray with a puppy strangling felon in public, right? But pray with my wife, unnecessary and embarrassing. And we finally did it. We finally held hands and started saying stuff like, can you help us stop taking everything personally? Please. Can you help us to have a sense of humor? Please. Please, Pop. And we went to therapy together, and then we go home and throw a Buick at each other, you know? And what we needed was the same thing I needed for therapy. I needed a moral application for the self-examination that I was doing. That's what I needed in order to get well from alcoholism. If you're new here, I want to welcome you to AA. The good news is our problem mainly rests in our mind. I don't know any recovery from a fatal illness that has a text that says we absolutely insist on enjoying life. There's no book about cholera that says cholera is a hoot. You'll love cholera. You'll meet other people with cholera. Then you'll meet people who just caught cholera, and it doesn't really get much better than that. My sponsor was fond of saying, and I just love this so much, he used to say that AA was the only recovery from a fatal illness he knew of that left the sufferer in better condition than they were in before they contracted the disease. Pretty cool. The bad news is our problem mainly rests in our mind. Some years ago, I was at a meeting, and I talked to this guy. He was new, and I went home, and he called me. And he talked to me for an hour, and I said, 4 times, so he'd know I wasn't dead. And he had been stalking several women. He had a restraining order taken out against him, but it's all different now. He's 2 weeks sober, and it's different. And at the end of the hour, he said to me, I feel so alone. And I said, I just listened to you for an hour without interrupting. I don't know you. What do you mean you feel alone? And he said, well, I mean I don't have a woman. And I said to him, what exactly would you be bringing to a relationship right now besides stalking skills? What are you bringing to the party right now? People 2 weeks into remission from leukemia aren't having dating problems. Alcoholics are, because our problem mainly rests in our mind. My wife was walking to our room, this is some years ago, and she knew I was talking to a new guy, and she heard me say into the phone, let's say the aliens are coming. She stopped short. She ain't missing a moment of this. And I said to the guy, look, man, I'm not telling you the aliens aren't coming. That's an outside interest. They might very well be coming. But I have one question for you. Why you? Why have they come for you? Why have they traversed the universe for your sorry ass? Why? Why? Don't you think they'll call a cop, go to a post office, do something like that? Plus, he's sleeping with the Bible on his chest to ward them off. So they're going to traverse the galaxy, walk into his room and go, oh no, the Bible, let's go home. I'm at my home group shortly after this, and I'm telling the story, and the cat from the story walks into the room, and I'm watching him. And I'm telling the story, and I'm watching the guy, and he went like this. Oh, shit. So the horrible memory. If you're new here, I want to urge you as much as I can to take this thing as seriously as you possibly can and go out there and have the time of your life. If the aliens are coming for you, welcome to AA, welcome home. Merry, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, everybody.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.